Okay, so get this right. There's this Reddit post from like 6 years ago that's become kind of legendary for predicting big market trends.
Really?
Yeah, it's called the Neckbeard Index.
The Neckbeard Index.
Yeah, no, the name is something else.
Yeah, that's not your typical Wall Street jargon.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But basically, it's this portfolio of companies, and it's supposed to like reflect the interests of, well, let's just say a certain kind of Reddit user.
Okay, I think I get the picture. Yeah. Gaming, tech, maybe a little too much Mountain Dew and Doritos.
You got it.
And this did well.
That's the thing. This random collection of stocks chosen, like based on stereotypes, has seriously outperformed the S&P 500 for the past 5 years.
Wow. Out of curiosity, how much are we talking?
Oh, it wasn't even close. And for those who don't know, the S&P 500, it's basically a collection of 500 of the biggest companies in the U.S. It's kind of the gold standard for seeing how the market's doing overall.
Right.
And this Neckbeard Index just like left it in the dust.
So what are we diving into today?
So today we are diving deep into this thing. We'll unpack how this index, which, let's be honest, is built on a pretty strange idea, how it managed to do so well, what companies it actually included, and most importantly, I think, what lessons we can learn from it.
Even if we don't necessarily fit the stereotype.
Exactly. Because, look, this isn't about blindly following some random Reddit post. Right? It's about understanding the why. Why did this work, and how can we maybe use that insight to identify, like, future trends ourselves?
Makes sense. So where do we even start with something like this?
Well, I guess the first step is to actually break down the companies that made up this Neckbeard Index.
Yeah.
We've got NVIDIA, AMD.
The graphics card company.
Yeah, exactly. The ones behind the cards that power all those crazy gaming PCs.
Right.
Then you've got PepsiCo and Domino's, got to fuel those late-night gaming sessions. Am I right?
Feeling the fun.
And, of course, we can't forget Netflix. Back then, they were quickly becoming the streaming platform.
Yeah.
You know, especially for things like anime, which I guess kind of fits the stereotype, at least according to, you know.
The stereotype, yeah.
Exactly.
So what else? What else is in this index?
See, rounding things out, we've got Amazon.
Of course, the king of online shopping.
Yep. Then there's Tesla, which even back then, you know, they were starting to turn heads with the whole electric vehicle thing.
Right. They were definitely onto something even then.
Totally. And last but not least, we've got Bitcoin.
The OG cryptocurrency. Everyone was just starting to buzz about it back then.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, that is a pretty wild mix of companies. And you know what? You'd be right.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing that gets me. This seemingly random group of companies actually ended up tapping into some really huge market trends that were just starting to pop up.
So they were onto something, even if they didn't realize it.
It's kind of wild, right?
It is. So how'd they do it? How did these, like you said, seemingly random companies end up doing so well? Take NVIDIA, for example. They were known for their gaming GPUs, sure, but this index, without even meaning to, it picked up on something else that was happening. AI and data centers were blowing up.
And both of those need serious GPU power.
Exactly. So it wasn't just about gamers.
It was about finding a company that was in the perfect spot to benefit from this like massive shift toward needing more and more computing power.
For AI and big data, yes.
Well, it's everything now, right?
Pretty much.
Okay, so NVIDIA, I get it. What about Tesla? Were they already seen as like, you know, the future of cars back then, or was it more of a lucky guess?
Tesla back then, I mean, they were definitely promising, but they were still seen as a pretty risky bet by a lot of people. It wasn't a sure thing at all back then. But I think this, let's call it the Reddit-inspired strategy, it kind of grasped the potential for electric vehicles to really shake things up, like change the whole car industry.
And that's what impossible to ignore now.
Exactly. I mean, it's everywhere you look.
So even if the Neckbeard Index sounds a little, you know, out there, it seemed to be onto something. Like they accidentally stumbled onto these huge trends.
Yeah. It's almost like they didn't even realize what they were onto.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so interesting, I think. Because now we can look back and see how these companies did, see those trends play out, and maybe, just maybe, learn how to spot those kinds of opportunities ourselves.
Exactly. It's all about applying that hindsight, right?
All right. So how do we do that? Do we all need to like start scrolling through Reddit forums dedicated to, well, you know?
I don't think that's necessary. The point here isn't really about the specific companies or even the stereotype behind the index. It's more about seeing how powerful it can be to recognize those trends early on.
So not about predicting the next fidget spinner, but understanding why those trends even catch on in the first place.
You got it. It's about like connecting the dots, even when they seem a little strange at first. This whole Neckbeard Index thing, it just shows how innovation often starts in the most unexpected places.
It's like that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. We might have missed out on some of these companies early on, but what can we learn from them now? What can we apply to our own, investing today?
It's about finding those little hints, the things that seem small but might actually point to something much bigger down the road.
Give me an example.
Okay, well, 6 years ago, think about the metaverse. I mean, that seemed like pure science fiction back then, right?
Yeah.
And now, it's a multi-billion-dollar market that everyone and their mother wants a piece of.
Crazy. Or what about plant-based meat? I remember when that was just for health food stores.
And now it's everywhere.
It really is. So these trends, they often start small, embraced by just a few, right? And then bam, they explode. The Neckbeard Index, as silly as it sounds, kind of picked up on that without even meaning to.
Exactly. Sometimes those niche interests can be surprisingly insightful.
So how do we tap into that? How do we know what's just a fad and what's actually going to last?
It's about training yourself to look deeper, to see beyond just the surface and understand the bigger changes happening in, technology or how people are behaving or even just cultural values.
It's about understanding that what's popular with a small group today could be everywhere tomorrow. But let's be real, even with the Neckbeard Index, they didn't get everything right, did they?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, no one has a perfect crystal ball, right?
Yeah.
Even within the Neckbeard Index, there were winners and, there were losers too.
Right. Like NVIDIA, Tesla, Bitcoin, they went through the roof.
Through the roof. But others, not so much.
You're talking about PepsiCo and Netflix, right? Although I got to say, gains of 70 to 90%, that still sounds pretty good to me.
Oh, absolutely. And that just shows how powerful long-term growth can be. But it also shows that you can't just bet on one horse, even if it looks like a winner.
Makes sense.
You've got to spread your bets, diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say, no matter how tempting it might seem.
So even a weird strategy like the Neckbeard Index, it's not some guaranteed path to becoming a millionaire.
No, not at all. The past doesn't predict the future. What worked then might not work now. And just blindly following something, even if it was successful before, that's not a smart way to invest.
Okay, so where does that leave us? What are people listening supposed to do with all of this?
The real lesson here isn't about copying that index exactly or chasing after whatever's trending on Reddit, It's about being curious, paying attention, and thinking for yourself.
It's about, like you said, thinking for yourself. But are there, actual tools out there to help us test these ideas out before just, throwing money at the wall and seeing what sticks,
There are. In fact, the article you shared mentioned one. It's called NexusTrade. It's an AI platform,
Right.
And it basically lets you go back in time with your investments.
Hold on. A time machine for investing.
Kind of. You can take a portfolio like this Neckbeard Index we've been talking about and see how it would have actually performed.
You mean if I had invested in this back then?
Exactly. It's called backtesting.
Interesting. So instead of just guessing, you can test out different strategies, see what might have worked well in the past.
Yeah. It's not about knowing the future, but it helps you see how different things that happened in the market might have changed things.
That's pretty cool. Does it take all the risk out of it though?
Oh, definitely not. No algorithm can predict everything, right?
Right.
The market changes based on so many things. Some of them you just can't predict.
Like what?
Oh, maybe the economy takes a sudden downturn or there's some crazy breakthrough in technology nobody saw coming.
So use the tools, but, don't rely on them completely.
Exactly. Do your research.
Information is power, as they say.
100%. Platforms like this, they can be really useful. But remember, they're just tools. They help you make better decisions, but they don't make the decisions for you.
Right. You can't just turn your brain off.
Definitely not.
So I think this has been, very enlightening. The Neckbeard Index, who knew, right?
Yeah.
But it really does make you think, what's happening right now that might seem strange that could be the next big thing?
It's an interesting question.
What's off everyone's radar now that in 5 years we'll all be talking about?
Right.
What do you think? I mean, maybe it's personalized medicine or lab-grown food becoming mainstream, or maybe something we haven't even thought of yet.
That's the best part. The market, the world, it's always changing. Something that seems impossible today could be normal tomorrow, right?
I like that. Keep an open mind.
Yes.
Stay curious. And, don't dismiss those ideas that seem a little out there. The next big thing might be closer than you think.
You never know.
Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap things up here. Thanks for diving into this with me. It's been fun.
Anytime. It was a great conversation.